We're here for the regularly scheduled meeting of the Elmhurst City Council. I would ask that you all rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Clerk Spencer, could you please call the roll?
Gutenkopf.
Here.
Deuter.
Here.
Dunn.
Here.
Leader.
Here.
Polumsky.
Here.
Graham.
Here.
Hipskin.
Here.
York.
Here.
Levin.
Here.
Healy. Absent. Honquist.
Here.
Kennedy.
Here.
Mulliner.
Here.
Wagner. 12 present, 2 absent.
12 present, 2 absent. 12 present, 2 absent. We have a quorum. On to agenda item number 3, written receipt. A receipt of written communications from the public. Is there anybody at this time who has any written communications they'd like to submit to the clerk? Seeing none, we'll move on. Public forum, agenda item number 4. Public forum. This is an opportunity in our meeting for anyone in the audience to address the City Council. We ask that you keep your comments to 3 minutes. You may or may not get an answer to your question, but you're more than welcome to offer your opinion. We ask that you approach the microphone only after you've been recognized. Clerk Spencer, do we have anybody signed up tonight?
Yes, Mr. Mayor. We'll start with Claude Pagash, 566 West Gladys.
Claude Pagash, 566 West Gladys. I attended a meeting on Han. It was interesting. Both developers indicated they would spend extra money for a facade that would be outstanding. No materials would be cheap, and it would be, both of them would be outstanding developments. The residents and the council members were kind of indicated they would have an opportunity to ask questions. Considering the fact that the developer has spent so much time describing so little, there was no time. So a couple of aldermen did ask a question. And there was one fundamental question that was asked that really has a great bearing on who you choose. Alderman asked, would there be a need during the construction of this project to change the building code? The mother lode was struck. We can have a great facade, but we will have to change the building code to suit the developers. Why? Building code is designed for the protection of the public and the resident, not for the development, not for the developer. It's the resident that has to be protected. So why would the developer say automatically we got to change the building code? What good is a facade if the place burns down from the inside? So, unfortunately, the questions couldn't be asked. The council members were informed that they could write letters with questions. Unfortunately, that leaves it in the hands of the aldermen. Very few of them ask questions. Don't know why. You represent the public, but you don't ask questions. I personally think, Mayor, you ought to have another meeting with those developers so the council members and the city residents can ask questions. Before we have a project that has to make room for one sign, you reside in this facility at your own risk. As if they're going to keep on asking for changes to the code, and in fact the code you live by
Mr. Pagash, you're at 3 minutes. I'd ask you to wrap it
isn't
up.
worth 10 minutes worth of time. So consider having another meeting with them. I surely would like to know what codes they want changed.
Bill Trudeau, 291 Villette.
In 2004, Elmhurst changed their building code and adopted the International Residential Code of 2003. And when they did that, someone in a position of authority decided to make Appendix F for informational purposes only. Appendix F deals with installing a passive radon abatement system in new construction, just for a point of reference. In April 3rd, 2009, my wife was diagnosed with lung cancer from radon in our home. I've come up and spoken 3 times with us over the years. Lung cancer is a pretty insidious disease. She was diagnosed with it in the lower left lobe of, or the lower lobe of her left lung, in some lymph nodes and in the pleura around her lungs. As the disease progressed, a year later, it went to her bones, which pretty much spread to every bone in her body. Very painful process. In January of this year, it spread to her brain and her spinal cord. She had radiation on her head. She lost all sense of taste, became very unsteady on her feet, really was never able to function well at that point. About a week and a half ago, it spread to her liver, and she passed away Wednesday morning. Along the way, I've begged the City Council, anyone in position of authority, to keep this from happening to anyone else. The state of Illinois, beginning of January of this year, passed a law requiring a passive radon system to be installed in all new construction. The law went into effect July of this year. And Elmhurst Building Code still makes it for informational purposes only. Don't let anybody else die.
Russ Jorns, 200 Walnut Street. That concludes public forum as far as those who signed in, Mr. Mayor.
Is there anybody else who did not have an opportunity to sign in on the sign-in sheet that would like to speak this evening? Seeing none, we'll move on. Announcements. Any announcements? Jim, do you have any other announcements from anybody on the dais? Seeing none, we'll move on. Consent agenda. Is there anybody on the dais who wants to remove something from consent agenda for potential comment or conversation? Seeing none, I'll ask for a motion to accept the consent agenda as noted in the agenda. Alderman York with a motion, Alderman Dunn with a second. Clerk Spencer.
York.
Aye.
Dunn.
Aye.
Leader.
Aye.
Palumski.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Hipskin. Levin.
Aye.
Healy. Absent. Conquest.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Mulliner.
Aye.
Wagner. Absent. Gudenkauf.
Aye.
Deuter.
Aye.
12 ayes, 0 nays, 2 absent.
12 ayes, 0 nays. That motion carries, as does the entire consent agenda, as noted. Committee reports, agenda item number 7. 7.1. Clerk Spencer, could you please read the recommendation?
It is therefore the recommendation of the Finance, Council Affairs, and Administrative Services Committee that the City Council authorize the refunding of the Series 2004 General Obligation Bond issue and the Series 2005 General Obligation Bond issue. Signed by Kevin L. York, Chairman, Bob Dunn, Vice Chairman, Stephen W. Hipskin, and Marty Deuter.
I'd ask for a motion to approve the report as read. Motion by Alderman York, second by Alderman Levin. Alderman Dunn. Alderman York, Would you please fill us in?
Thank you, Your Honor. I have 3 points I'd like to make about this report and plan to be brief. First, it's once again time to celebrate savings for the Elmhurst taxpayer. Approximately $600,000 net of expense will be saved on this bond refunding if everything goes as we believe it will. Second, bonding in Elmhurst is scrutinized and used judiciously for long-term assets that will benefit the community long-term. In accounting, we have a concept called matching, and with it we try to match payment for assets with the benefits derived from those paying. It would be unfair to the current residents and taxpayers to fully pay for these long-term assets when other residents and taxpayers in the future will derive benefits from these assets without paying their fair share for them. Let me make it very clear right now that GO bond debt is not used in Elmhurst as a credit card, as some people continually insinuate. Finally, Elmhurst is very mindful and conservative with GO bond debt. We have less than some communities and more than others. On an annual basis, we are currently retiring about $3.5 million in debt each year, and we are currently about half the level of debt that we're permitted by our own ordinance. The committee asks for your support of this report. Thank you.
Very good. Any other comments or questions as it relates to this report? Seeing none, I'll ask Clerk Spencer to please call the roll.
York.
Aye.
Dunn.
Aye.
Leader.
Aye.
Palumski.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Hipskin.
Aye.
Levin.
Aye.
Healy. Absent. Honquist.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Mulliner.
Aye.
Wagner. Absent. Gutenkopf.
Aye.
Deuter.
Aye.
12 ayes, 0 nays, 2 absent.
12 ayes, 0 nays. That motion carries. Report is approved. Agenda item 7.2, another report from Finance, Sales Tax Rebate Incentive. Clerk Spencer, I would ask that you read the recommendation.
It is therefore the recommendation of the Finance, Council Affairs, and Administrative Services Committee that the City Council direct the City Attorney to prepare a sales tax incentive agreement between the City of Elmhurst and the Napleton Group as outlined in this report. Signed by Kevin L. York, Chairman, Bob Dunn, Vice Chairman, Stephen W. Hipskin, and Marty Deuter.
Motion to approve to put this before the floor. Alderman York with a motion, Alderman Dunn with a second. Alderman York.
Thank you again, Your Honor. Again, my comments will be brief, but I do have a few points that I'd like to make regarding this report. We had a major sales tax contributor in Elmhurst come forth to ask for some assistance in making $1.5 million worth of improvements to their property. Everything regarding this request was within the scope of the recently adopted sales tax incentive policy the City Council just passed. The committee's discussion revolved very tightly around that very policy as discussion ensued, and in fact so much so that the Napleton Group had to spend some extra time working with city staff to present the information requested to arrive where we did as a basis for the sales tax increment or increase on which to base the sharing that we've recommended. Even though the economy is improving and sales tax receipts seem to be trending up, it is important that we consider these types of requests in order to preserve not only what we have, but what we would forego if we were to lose an important contributor to our tax base. I believe this is especially true with auto dealerships, as many times buyers will come to Elmhurst looking for an Acura or a Kia, and they may end up leaving Elmhurst in a Dodge or a Hyundai. The committee asks for your support of this request and report. Thank you.
Very good. Any comments or questions? Alderman Braham.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A few questions initially directed, I guess, at the committee, if they would so indulge me. I take sales tax incentives very seriously, especially for a business that is currently located in Elmhurst compared to a business that we're trying to lure to Elmhurst. In this case, I see that the committee has done a lot of work, and I appreciate that. I did have a question on some of the results that came out of the recommendation that's before us tonight. 3 of my questions are as follows. Why did the committee decide to choose a 70% of the 2012 sales as the base? compared to any other percentage. Above 70% would obviously be where I'm leading with that. Second question, and this is a big one, I think. Why are we doing the percentage split, 40% City of Elmhurst and 60% Napleton Group? And then the third, I think, is, if not larger of a question, why are we giving more incentive to Napleton than they received in another community this year? Being this, the recommendation before us is for up to $750,000 over 10 years, and Calumet City Kia, same improvements. That city gave Napleton Kia, a formula of $100,000 for 6 years, albeit $600,000. So why do we feel that it's necessary to provide additional incentive than what was already provided to Napleton Kia?
Okay. Alderman York, I assume you'd like to respond. I've got 3 points from Alderman Braham. First one being the 70% sales target.
Sure. I'll go ahead and respond, and then obviously if the committee has anything to add, they can chime in as well. Why 70%? Basically, that was the part that I referred to in my comments, that when they first came in, they said it's difficult to separate the efforts from Kia and Acura. The improvements are related primarily to Kia. So we had the representative from Napleton work extensively with Finance Director Gaston and Assistant Finance Director Troisine, who have privileged information with regards to specific vendors' sales tax records. And they got together and came to a conclusion that satisfied city staff that the 70% number that we're talking about here accurately represents the dollars that would be related to Kia sales, used car sales, and parts and accessory sales.
You want to go ahead and address all three?
Oh,
The next one was the 40-60 split, City versus Napleton.
okay. Why 40-60? This just kind of came out of our discussion at our committee level when the request was placed. The Napleton group was asking for 75% of the increment for them to finance the improvements. Through the course of many committee meetings and discussions, culminating in our final one, we all agreed that 40% for the city, 60% for Napleton was a better resolution on the whole thing than what they had proposed at 75%. And with regards, I'm just going to jump right to the third question, Your Honor. Thank you. With regards to the total amount, I don't know right off the top of my head if that was a new dealership in the other area, but if you look at, and I'm trying to find it here really quickly.
I've got it, Kevin, if I can help you.
Okay. If they hit their, we assumed a 3% annual sales growth, and which seems to be kind of about the track that they're on, and if they stay on that sales tracks, the total payout to the city, or payout to them, would be $244,000. Assuming a 5% annual sales growth, the incremental sales tax produced would lead to a payout of $432,000 to Napleton. So while the number is $750,000 not to exceed in the report, gosh knows we hope they all get there. We all hope they get there, but we kind of think that it's probably going to be less than that. So.
Alderman Levin, did you?
Yeah, I apologize. I had done some research of my own, and it was a little bit of a busy time, and I didn't have a chance to talk to the committee. But a couple questions, and then I just want to explore this a bit. Is the sales tax apportionment, when you say it's 70%, is that to reflect because there's an inability to calculate what percentage of parts and used cars are attributable to one franchise versus the other?
That would be a fair statement.
All right. And do we know who owns the property on which the dealership is located?
The Napleton family does, or a Napleton family trust, or it's owned by many of the same, if not all, of the principals of the Napleton Group.
All right, and I saw in the committee report there was a discussion of doing a 50-50 split at one time as opposed to 60-40. Was there some, not that there's much difference, but was there something that pushed it one way or the other?
I think there was a difference amongst the committee members, with some being higher than that and some being at that number, and that was just an area that we all agreed to compromise to.
All right. I guess I'm struggling a bit here because I agree with Alderman Bram that I'm more used to seeing incentives to bring in. I also understand the importance of business retention. I do represent some car dealers in my business, and so I deal with this sometimes on the other side. In this situation where franchises are in territorial locations and where the dealer owns the property and has a significant investment, I've seen one of the dealerships I'm looking at has a potential build-out requirement from the franchise of several $1 million. So this one does not really seem like it's all that much in the world of car dealer finance. And yet, I don't think there's a real threat that the franchise is going to leave. I don't know that if there's been any exploration that the Acura dealership is needing help. So essentially, we're putting in taxpayer dollars of a significant amount, which is really just a contribution to the dealer's build-out. My feeling is it's a little bit too rich for this particular set of circumstances.
Alderman Dunn.
I appreciate Alderman Levin's comments, and this particular application was reviewed with the new sales tax incentive in mind, and that is not only to bring in new business to town, it is also a retention tool. In this case, we felt that there was a very healthy ongoing concern in this business, and they were making a significant investment, $1.5 million. I wouldn't call it small, and that was an investment that the committee felt would not only help that dealership, but Elmhurst in general. And in the sales tax incentive policy, there's a guidance of to look to 50-50, and that's because, at least in my mind, both the business is marketing themselves, is investing in growing their business, but the city is also. The city is advertising, it's working with the business community, and we felt that the split that was arrived was equitable in this particular case.
Can I ask one follow-up to that?
Well, I want to make sure first-timers have a chance. Not first-time aldermen, first-time speakers. Alderman Deuter, you had your hand up.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to follow up on a couple things that Alderman Dunn was saying. One, I think it's hard to assess the risk of someone relocating. I think in the history of this group in particular, and others as well, they do have a tendency to move, and when they move, they, in this case, we are willing to share an increment above a certain amount. But when they relocate and they go into a city that's eager to get them, the percentage of sales tax revenue that they're sharing is their entire sales tax that they've relocated, which is obviously is a much greater benefit to the dealer. So I think there's always that risk. Alderman Bram asked specifically about Calumet City, and that's an interesting example where their formula, their offer, if we understood it right from the information Napleton provided, is that they are going to receive $600,000 a year over 6 years, but it's not based on any share of revenue. It's really just $100,000 a year, that's just what they're putting out to get them there. So that's, different places are pretty desperate to get these, which I think means we have to work a little bit harder maybe to hold on to them. Not that we compare to Calumet City, but in the grand scheme of things, people are looking to attract these dealers.
Alderman York? Oh, I'm sorry. And then I'll go to Alderman Gutenkopf.
Thank you. And another point that I'd like to make in regards to what Alderman Dunn offered too, I think that from the very outset, their ask was very much tied to Kia alone. Kia is one of the fastest growing car brands currently, and they're going to improve the property for the Kia brand, but our concern, I think at least a little bit, was that they would simply take the Kia brand and relocate just that brand and leaving the Acura here. So that was one threat that we kind of, I think, perceived as negotiations began as well. Thank you.
Alderman Gutenkopf.
Thank you. I've been under the impression that franchisees aren't at the same kind of liberty to pick up and move as other kinds of businesses, that in fact the manufacturers have an awful lot of say in where these businesses can locate. And it's been my impression that the threat of a car dealer leaving if we can't meet their incentive request is less than in other kinds of businesses. Is this not an appropriate understanding of the way the car dealers function? And what gave you the impression that if we didn't offer them the incentive that they were asking for, that they were going to leave? It just doesn't strike me as realistic as other kinds of businesses that might move.
Alderman York.
Thank you. Franchises typically dictate relatively closely where franchisees need to be, but it's pretty evident in this particular case that the current location they're at is on the very west side of Elmhurst. So for them to, say, move across 83 into some vacant land would put them into Addison, kind of similar to what happened with the Ford dealership here in Elmhurst, where it moved from Elmhurst all the way across the street to Bensonville.
Alderman Levin.
Two questions. One is, was there a presentation of the finances of either the Kia or Acura dealership in conjunction with the request for the tax incentive?
Yes.
And so was there an ability to see if the franchises were making sufficient money to pay for this improvement?
Yes.
All right. And the other point is, the Ford dealership moved across the street for exactly the point I was driving at, and that's because the family owned that property, and it was a vacant, better facility to move into. When you have two franchises on one property, and I'm speaking from a knowledge base where I've represented car dealers, if you have two on one property, you're in a good situation today because a lot of the franchises don't want co-location anymore. So if you have that, it's something you don't want to give up, meaning the ability to run two dealerships on one property. So realistically, for a dealership to move to another property when it owns one here and fighting for the approval of the franchise doesn't seem that realistic. I'm not saying we shouldn't give some incentive. I just think that we're offering is a little bit richer than what it needs to be in this circumstance. If it was the Ford dealership and they were moving because they had a place to go to and we were really fighting to retain them here, I would probably be giving more than this.
Alderman Dunn, then I'll go to Alderman Braham.
Just bear in mind that with the way this agreement is structured, if 2012 is the baseline for the sales tax that was calculated, if the Napleton Kia would not grow in sales tax, there would be no payout. What the purpose of this agreement is to get companies to invest, to improve, to grow, and to stay in Elmhurst. And Again, if there's no growth, there's no payout. We sincerely hope there is healthy growth with this particular company. I think it will benefit both Elmhurst and this particular car dealership.
Alderman Braham.
Thank you. A few more questions on this topic. First off, it was stated about moving and will they move, what's the potential of them moving? I agree with Alderman Levin in this case that I don't see a high potential. There's always that chance that any dealership or any business for that matter could leave Elmhurst. In this case, we've already stated one of the reasons why they wouldn't move. Their point of sale equipment is all tied together as one. We can't even separate the Kia dollars from the Acura dollars. So I don't see them having any incentive, any reason to move just from that standpoint. And I know that's minute in the grand scheme of things, but it's just one example on why they have no reason to move. Alderman Gutenkopf's point too, yes, they could move to Addison, I would assume, but the likelihood, I think, is very small because they have the economies of scale here by having both dealerships, Acura and Kia, side by side, just from the Napleton Group's perspective. Did the committee take a look at over how many years, if we went with the current recommendation, over how many years would the city of Elmhurst realize their break-even point, make up those sales tax dollars? I know the assumptions were either 3% or 5%, so this is my second question. Is that typical over the past years? I think, Alderman York, you've alluded to the conversations that our staff had with the Napleton Group. It sounds like 3% and or 5% is in the ballpark of their increase in sales tax, but just to make sure that is accurate. And the other point is, as Alderman Dunn just said, this is off of a baseline of 2012. Well, what is 2013 looking like? I know we're not done as of yet, getting pretty close. But is 2013 following that 3%, 5%, or even greater than an increase of sales tax?
Alderman Braham, what was your second question?
I think
Not sure I understood it.
3%.
it was just to verify the 3% and or 5%
Oh, anticipated growth?
anticipated growth is accurate, correct?
Alderman York, you want to
Sure.
opine?
With regard to the point-of-sale system, the point-of-sale system is by location. So if they move to another location, they would simply start another point-of-sale system. The problem with car dealers is that with their point-of-sale systems, they can't necessarily differentiate between what's a final take on a new X brand of car or a used car, because somebody comes in to buy the new brand car, they trade in a car, that car now becomes a basis as part of the deal, and then it's sold later on a used car. Perhaps it's wholesaled off, there's a whole bunch of things, but long story short is a point-of-sale system would simply be started in another location. There's no problems with that. They're very good at that. The 3% rate is something that was historically provable, and the 2013, they are trending probably a little bit above that 3%, but it'll be some 4 months after the year closes before we'll understand exactly what their full numbers are in the eye of the Illinois state sales tax system.
Any other questions or comments? Alderman Braham?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like to make actually two motions to amend, but both being separate from each other. The first motion I would like to make is to change the 40% city, 60% Napleton split of the annual growth over the base year of sales tax to 50 city, 50 Napleton.
Alderman Braham, I need you to specifically point out where in the report.
It's on page 2 in one location.
So your initial motion is to change the report as written from calculating using a 40% city, 60% Napleton split to 50-50?
Correct.
Does your other motion tie in, or is it appropriate for them to be separate at this point?
I think it would be appropriate for it to be separate.
Okay. Clerk Spencer, do you want him to restate his motion, or do you understand?
I think I understand it. He wants to amend the report where it states the 4060 city Napleton to 50/50.
So to be as specific as possible, a motion to amend the report on page 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. Fifth bullet, sales tax rebate will be calculated using a 50% city, 50% Napleton split. That's what I have. Is that accurate, Mr. Bram?
That is accurate, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so I will recognize that as a motion. Do we have a second for that motion to amend? Alderman Gutenkopf seconds that motion to amend. So now on to debate to amend this motion to amend the report, in essence changing 40/60 to 50/50. Any additional conversations? Alderman Dunn.
Just to go over a little bit of history, we're talking about the split between the company that the city's dealing with and the city itself. The city's generally varied between 50/50 and 75/20 in the previous 10 agreements that we've had. So this is not out of the ordinary that it would be 50/50 or 75/20 or somewhere in between. Just want to make that comment.
I have a question before we move on, I have a question for City Attorney Storino. I believe this motion affects the numbers written in the report immediately following. The committee put in an assumption of 3% sales, which gives X and X split over the next 10 years.
It would.
Does part of this amendment actually have to include that? You understand what I'm asking?
I do.
Yes. Those are just assumptions? Okay. Okay. I think we all know what we're talking about here, and those are examples given, and I think everyone here understands that a recalculation would be a 50/50 split. So we'll let that sit as stands, or stand. We'll let it stand. Any additional comments or questions as it relates to the motion to amend? Clerk Spencer, I'd ask you to call the roll on the motion to amend.
Bram.
Aye.
Gutenkopf.
Aye.
Goiter.
Aye.
Dunn.
No.
Leader.
Nay.
Polumsky.
No.
Where you at? Hipskin.
No.
York.
No.
Levin.
Aye.
Healy is absent. Honquist.
No.
Kennedy.
No.
Mulliner.
No.
And Wagner's absent. All right, did I get everybody?
4 plus 8, 12.
It looks like 4 ayes, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8 nays, and 2 absent.
4 ayes, 8 nays, that motion to amend fails. On to the original motion unless there is an additional motion to amend. Alderman Bram.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would like, in an attempt to compromise, I would like to make a secondary motion, and that is in regards to the maximum payout, to change the maximum payout on page 2 from $750,000 to $600,000, just like they received in Calumet City. And any subsequent calculations that may be
Yeah, I don't think there is for the cap, basically. But there, would we be amending in 2 places?
I think that was only their request up, I think, to
some of, where the other 750 is mentioned.
So that's the only one?
Theirs is the
So that
only
was the
place
request, this
above.
is the actual?
I only see
Got it,
one.
okay. All right. A motion to amend the report, second bullet point, maximum payout of $600,000. Clerk Spencer, you got that?
Yes.
Motion to amend by Alderman Bram. Is there a second for the motion? Second by Alderman Gutenkopf. Any comments or questions? Alderman Gutenkopf.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. You know, I didn't make a comment last time because I thought that it was fairly obvious. We're talking about taxpayer dollars. The lawyer on the council who deals with these things indicated that he thought that this was a little rich. And I think it is as well. I appreciate this business in Elmhurst. I'm really glad they're doing well. I'm glad they're remodeling. I think this is great. I think it's great that the city's in a financial position to assist this business with this remodeling. But I am incredibly mindful of who lives here and how we fund the city and how we fund all the things that we do. I think we've all lost track of the fact that we're using taxpayer incentives to help a for-profit business that is, you know, in the business of staying fresh so that they can attract new customers. Everyone in business does this. This is part of how it operates. If you don't stay fresh, people don't come. So I want to help them achieve this so that they can be successful, but I don't want to help them achieve this at a cost that I find excessive. And I think the split initially, obviously, I thought that was high, and I think if we are looking at a cap that is reasonable, then we can achieve our goals as a city to keep a business here, and we can be a little bit more responsible with the way we're spending our funding. And I think this second amendment helps us stay responsible with the way we're spending money.
Any additional comments? Alderman Polomsky.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have a question for the committee, and I went back and I looked at the sales tax incentive policy, and I do not see in there that the criteria, that there's any point that gives consideration to if the applicant is a property owner or not. Is that right? And was that taken into consideration with this request?
Alderman York.
I don't believe it's a part of the policy, no.
Right. Was it taken into consideration with this request?
I don't think specifically, but we knew that we know the Napleton family owns the property.
Additional comments or questions? Alderman Bram.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just two really quick, one of which, per the committee's recommendation, it states that the projected at this percentage split would be $432,000 over this 10 years. I don't mind setting the bar high so they're aggressive and attract more customers and try to sell more, and then indirectly, you know, City of Elmhurst and therefore the residents get that benefit, that sales tax benefit. But the report itself says $432,000 is what's predicted. We set the bar up at $750,000. I'm just lowering the bar to be conservative from what we, as in the taxpayers of Elmhurst, give to a privately owned business. I think it's a good compromise. I think it's the right direction to go. In all honesty, I was thinking of just making that bar at $450,000, slightly over what the committee thought the Kia dealership would be able to reach. The other question is, I think is still outstanding, and that is, over how many years will the City of Elmhurst residents recoup this type of a deal? Is it 5 years, 10 years, 20 years of that, what I would consider lost sales tax, by providing anywhere from $600,000 to $750,000 in incentives?
Any additional comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll ask Clerk Spencer to, yes?
I still think that that's a question, and it hasn't been answered. How many years will it take before we hit break even with this incentive?
I think the fairest answer to that question is unknown. It's technically not a break even. These are tax dollars that come in at the sale. So take your loss and figure out whatever it is. Take your incentive, your payout, let's say it's 432, well, then you'd have to take the average of the last 5 years, find out what the increment is over the time of this incentive, and just extrapolate over the next. So you're kind of actually trying to add two unknowns onto each other. Alderman Gudenkauf.
So did the committee do that? Did they calculate
That wasn't the
those
question,
numbers?
Alderman Gudenkauf.
All right. Then let me restate the question. Did the committee, and I believe Alderman Bram has asked this twice now, did the committee make that calculation?
Did the committee consider payback?
Thank you, Your Honor. The basic gist of a sales tax incentive, especially the way that this one is in the report, and like many of the others that Alderman Dunn referenced in the past, if their sales don't increase, they get nothing. So it's hard to do I don't even know how to do a break-even analysis on it, but this is a sharing of incremental new sales taxes with an entity that's staying in town, keeping that brand here in town, and making additional sales here in town. That's all we're doing, is sharing those incremental additional dollars with them to help them recoup a small part of their investment in the property. So we can't quantify it exactly, because we can't look out the 10 years down the road and say, boy, it's going to increase 2.6% this year, it's going to go backwards 1.5% the year after that, and it's going to go plus 7% the year after that. This is going to be based in facts and numbers that we get from the Illinois Department of Revenue, and it's going to be a pretty straightforward calculation. And if they don't make additional sales over what we've outlined here, the $224,000, there's not going to be anything to split.
Alderman Bram.
Thank you. The point of my question was, you make assumptions, and off of those assumptions, you come to a break-even point. It sounds like that wasn't done, and I respect that, but that is the basis of my question. It's not what reality will be, it's what assumptions in this case, the city would make to have an understanding of what that break-even point would be. One of the reasons why I asked that question is to understand, the city of Elmhurst residents' benefit in doing this deal. The other piece of that puzzle is, according to the current recommendation, which I haven't brought up until this point, we don't have any insurances that after this 10-year sales tax agreement is over, that in this case, Napleton Kia could pick up and leave, as some have already said. We have no, what is it called, a clawback provision whatsoever in this agreement. So we mandate in the agreement that they're here for 10 years. Well, that's great. That's while they're collecting hopefully, on both sides of the coin, collecting a sales tax incentive. But after that 10-year mark, maybe at that point they want to leave. I would have also liked to have seen something to say that they stay around past that, or at least a clawback provision on top of this. But I wanted to explain the basis of my question so I could have some type of understanding on when we see a payout, we being the Elmhurst residents. Thank you.
Okay, any additional comments?
I, like Alderman York, would find it hard to define a break-even point, but what I could say is if the Napleton Kia dealership should leave us in the short term, several years from now, the break-even point would have been painfully quick had we decided to not decided to go ahead with this.
One
Okay.
real quick comment, if you don't.
Well, I appreciate the spirited discussion. We do have a budget discussion after this, so I'm going to ask folks to wrap it up if they could. Alderman York.
The break-even point is $224,730.
Okay. Clerk Spencer, I would ask that you call the roll on the, let me make sure I got this right, on the motion to amend, second page, bullet point number 2, maximum payout of $750,000 to $600,000. Clerk Spencer.
Bram.
Aye.
Butenkoff.
Aye.
Deuter.
No.
Dunn.
No.
Leader.
No.
Polumsky.
No.
Hipskin. No. York.
No.
Levin.
Aye.
Healy, absent. Honquist.
No.
Kennedy.
No.
Mulliner.
No.
Wagner, absent. So it looks like 3 ayes, 9 nays, and 2 absent.
3 ayes, 9 nays.
Is that right? Wait, that's 5.
No, that's right.
Oh, okay.
9 and 3, 12.
Okay, if you say so, Mr. Hammond.
3 ayes, 9 nays. That motion fails. On to the underlying original motion and the original report with no changes. Any additional comments? Seeing none, Clerk Spencer, please call the roll.
Okay. That will be York,
Aye.
Dunn,
Aye.
Leader,
Aye.
Palumski.
Aye.
Graham,
No.
Hipskin. Levin,
No.
Healy is absent. Honquist,
Aye.
Kennedy,
Aye.
Mulliner,
Aye.
Wagner, absent. Gutenkopf,
No.
Deuter,
Aye.
did I get everybody? Okay. That is 9 ayes, 3 nays, and 2 absent.
9 ayes, 3 nays. That motion carries. On to agenda item 7.3, 2013 tax levy report. Clerk Spencer, I'd ask that you read the recommendation.
It is therefore the recommendation of the Finance, Council Affairs, and Administrative Services Committee that the City Council approve the City of Elmhurst 2013 tax levy in the amount of $9,444,616. Furthermore, it is the recommendations of the Finance Committee that the City Council approve the abatement of the current debt service obligation for the city's general obligation bonds that is not allocated to the general fund or the capital improvement fund in the amount of $3,046,142. Signed by Kevin L. York, Chairman, Bob Dunn, Vice Chairman, Stephen W. Hipskin, and Marty Deuter.
I'll entertain a motion to approve the report and recommendation. Alderman York with a motion, Alderman Dunn with a second. Alderman York, your report.
Thank you, Your Honor. I'd like to thank the committee and city staff for all their hard and conscientious work on this report. Honestly, we're a bit in front of the finalization of the budget and consideration of this tax levy, but the committee's in agreement that we would go ahead and put this report in the agenda, as we don't think there will be a cumulative material change in the budget as it is currently presented. What you have before you tonight is a tax levy that's comprised of essentially 4 elements. Those elements are the general fund contribution, the public safety pension contribution, the library contribution, and debt service that's not abated. We've already discussed the changes and the assumptions for the public safety pensions and talked at length about that, and the results are what they are and on the report. With regard to the library contribution, the library board approves the library budget and puts forth the tax levy for the library, and the city council has no real control or say-so over that particular portion of the levy. The debt service not abated is debt related to the general fund and the capital improvement fund, and since the financial crisis and at the recommendation of the mayor's financial task force, we have not abated that portion of the debt service since 2009. So this is consistent with that. That leaves for discussion the general fund contribution tax levy, and I'm happy to report that the committee has agreed to lower this portion of the tax levy by $50,000 for 2013. As indicated in the report, revenue from other sources is rising, and we're able to offset the property tax portion somewhat based on this reality. It should be noted that we have gradually increased services over the past couple of years, and we know there are big projects on the horizon with regard to stormwater and normal wear and tear items that make up a city. So it is just not prudent to simply reduce the tax levy by the same amount it was raised some years ago. In fact, in the past 3 years, the general fund portion of the tax levy has decreased by about $150,000. With that being said, the cumulative change in the combined levy is unfortunately a net increase of $23 on the average $295,000 home in Elmhurst. While this is a small number, it is still an increase. City staff and everyone here on the dais has done their part to minimize this increase, and there are a couple of schedules, namely B and C specifically, that summarize the different components of this increase and how those components affect the overall increase. To put it succinctly, those things that we can control, we've done a pretty good job at managing and controlling them. Those elements we either don't control or we can't afford to stick our heads in the sand and let them proceed as usual and lead to bigger problems down the road. We have tackled them and done the best job that we can based on what we know today. I therefore ask for your support of this report and would be happy to try and answer any questions that anyone may have. Thank you.
Thank you. Any additional questions for or regarding the report? Alderman Brand.
Thank you. I don't know if this is appropriate for the committee or maybe the Director of Finance. In regards to abating or not abating, it was stated by Alderman York, and it's stated in the report as well, that we're pretty much following protocol that was followed since 2009. I understand due to the financial hard times, the recession at that point, I believe that was the point that we started not abating everything. We're not out of the woods by any stretch of the imagination, but we're clawing back a little bit here. What is the rationale to, other than because we haven't done it since 2009, is there any additional rationale for not abating more of the debt service? And then the secondary question would be, any of the stormwater improvements that was spoke about by Alderman York's comments, I believe those would not be covered in here. I believe that would be GO bonds in order to pay for most, if not all, of that additional work.
What was your question about the GO bonds?
The stormwater work, or maybe I shouldn't say storm only, but storm sewer work that needs to be done within the city of Elmhurst, is that going to be paid out of the tax levy or additional GO bonds?
Alderman York, you want to add a
Sure.
little
Thank you, Your Honor.
substance to your debate and consideration about not abating and stormwater projects if you...
Sure. I'll answer the second question first because it's easy. The answer is yes. If improvements were required that were capital in nature, which they probably will be, they would be subject to consideration of GO bonding. Other projects that are smaller, say anywhere between nothing and $1.5 million or $2 million, may get consideration for funding out of regular funds. But again, that's going to be on the table for everybody to consider and have a vote upon that. The answer to your first question, I tried to address in my comments. The not abating bonds was a direct result of the financial recession. And to this point, we have not, as a committee, really considered changing our stance on that due to the comments that I made that, you know, while we're out of the woods and things are improving, we don't think we're to the point, especially given that we have these things on the horizon. We don't want to give it back and then have to take it back away, you know, some point relatively quickly. So we're kind of trying to look at the overall picture and make the best decision that we can with the information we have today.
Alderman Gutenkopf.
Sorry, I'm still framing this question in my mind. So we're not abating debt service because we had used other revenue to abate that debt service in the past, such as sales tax revenue. And we just approved a very strong sales tax incentive for a business in town predicated on new growth. And it seems to me that it would be prudent for us to want to capture as much of that new growth in sales tax as possible to give our taxpayers a break on our debt service, because the more of that revenue we generate, the more we're able to ease some of those payments that people are going to see now on their tax bills, because we've been hoping to create that new revenue since 2009, which is when we stopped abating debt service for things that are in the, the general fund. So I'm a little concerned about this overall and about this tax levy, because this is a real struggle for me. On the one hand, it looks like we're being pretty prudent. We're making sure that our pensions are well-funded. We don't want to be in the same pension crisis that other governmental bodies are in. This is a good thing. On the other hand, we have an opportunity, or we're missing opportunities to capture some of that growth so that we can make things easier, so that we can go back to abating more of the bonds that we have to float so that we can keep big projects happening in the city. At the same time, we're very fortunate that the bond market has allowed us to refinance them at a much lower interest rate. But I still come back to the fact that the average homeowner in Elmhurst is going to see a $23 increase to the city portion of their taxes plus the debt service. I guess buried in all of that is really the question: how much does the average homeowner pay toward the debt service on top of this?
So you have a question about what the abatement dollar amount is and what the average would be?
How much does not abating the bonds cost the average homeowner in Elmhurst?
Say it again, I'm sorry.
How much does not abating bonds cost the average homeowner in Elmhurst?
It's on Schedule C.
Okay.
This year, it will cost $110.40, which is $14.80 less than last year.
So, I'm sorry, it's on Schedule C, which I was scrolling to, and I missed the number you said.
Let me know when you get there.
All right. $110.40
Yes.
plus the $23
No.
that the average homeowner is going to pay in
The different components are, this year, $3 less in the general portion of the tax levy, $41 more in the pension portion of the tax levy, and a $15 savings in the debt, which all net out to a $23 increase.
I guess that was the structure of my question. So including all of those things, you're only going to see the $23 increase.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Alderman Levin.
Well, I think one question, one comment, or one answer, I should say. The reason we don't debate is because we can't afford it. It's really quite simple. But the comment is, I want to give the Finance Committee, in particular Chairman York, a lot of credit, because I know that Chairman York has put a lot of time into this, and it's, along with Director Gaston, this is a very good analysis, which leads to the conclusion that this is the right thing to do. And as I'm pleased to see that what the Finance Committee has done is maintain the line on city, what we can control in the taxes, and we're starting to eat away at the amount that we abate. It's nothing that can be done overnight. So I think this is an excellent proposal, and it's the best result that could be achieved, and I thank you, and I fully support it.
Alderman Braham.
Alderman Levin's statement actually drew another question out of me. I know that's hard to believe. But what is the rationale on why we can't afford it? I think that we have been contributing to our, what do we call it, the emergency fund, or so we've been putting a couple $100,000 into that, where I don't remember, I'd have to pull out my budget book a little bit early, between 3 and 4 months of
Total debt service.
operating, 3 to 4 months of operating costs in our general fund today. So I'm, I guess, looking for what can't we afford? If we abate the bonds or the additional bonds, then, as Alderman York said, of what we've already done, there's a cost savings there. So I'm not sure, and I'm seeing the rationale of we can't afford it. And if someone on the committee can explain what the details of that statement really is here in dollars and cents. And then the other question is, this is the first time we, I think, aligned from a fiscal perspective of revenue being sales tax as well as expenses being the rest of our budget. So I believe, if that is the correct assumption, that what we're showing here is exactly what we need to support the expenses that are currently to date in our budget book. Is that also a correct statement?
Yeah, debt service not abated. Bottom line question, Alderman Bram, your question is whether or not we can afford it and what's the dollar amount, yes? The abatement?
For the abatement, yes.
Yeah, I think it's Schedule A. I'm just going to jump in here and try to move this along. Schedule A at the bottom, the debt service we're not abating is over $2 million. Is that correct, Alderman York? Yes. That's the number we're talking about.
Yep.
So that, I think that's the answer to the question, is it's $2 million. And the opinion was that we're not in a position to abate a full $2 million.
What's the details behind the opinion is what I'm asking.
Alderman York, you want to fill in the details of your conversation at your committee?
I will try, Your Honor. Thank you very much for your confidence in me. In your budget book, currently, the way it's printed, there's a contribution to general fund balance of $630,000. That was printed before the reduction in the city portion, or the general fund portion of the tax levy. So that number is now down to $580,000 contribution to fund balance if everything goes as proposed in 2014. So there's an overage there, but we also understand that we probably have some things, coming before us as far as bigger expenditures. So if some of those came along, we could have the option then of funding some of those partially out of the general fund, to the extent that it does not lower the general fund balances below the prescribed 25 to 33% balance that we like to see to keep around for operating reserves. So the council, as it does with many things, has the flexibility to decide where expenditures are financed from, whether it's through the issuance of GO bonds, whether it's through funds, for example, general fund that we have, the general fund that we have in the bank, or some combination of those. We have the ability to look at all of our assets when we're trying to figure out how to solve an expenditure issue.
Follow up, Mr. Mayor. So I did open up the budget book, and on page 100, it is the chart of showing what our projected general fund balance is compared to fund balance range goal. The range is, for 2013, estimated is at the high point, $12 million, and we're projecting over $15 million. So that's where I'm struggling with the "we can't afford it" comment. I might be misunderstanding something, but according to this relatively simplistic graph, we're $3 million over what our target is of a 3 to 4 month balance.
Okay, any additional comments? Seeing none, I'll ask Clerk Spencer to please call the roll.
York. York.
Aye.
Dunn.
Report, right? No amendments? Okay.
Nope, no amendments. Report
Aye.
as is.
Leader,
Aye.
Polumsky,
Aye.
Graham. Graham,
Thinking.
okay.
Aye.
Tipskin. Aye. Levin,
Aye.
Healy, absent. Honquist,
Aye.
Kennedy,
Aye.
Mulliner,
Aye.
Wagner, absent. Gutenkopf,
No.
Reuter,
Aye.
I did everybody. All right, 11 ayes, 1 nays, and 2 absent.
11 ayes, 1 nay. That motion carries. Report is approved. On to 7.4, a report not from finance. Clerk Spencer, I'd ask you to read the recommendation.
It's therefore the Development Planning and Zoning Committee recommends that the City Council deny the applicant's request for a subdivision and associated lot frontage and lot area variations. The city attorney is hereby directed to prepare the necessary documents for the City Council denial. Signed by Scott M. Levin, Chairman, Danny Polumsky, Vice Chairman, and Mark A. Mulliner, Alderman, 7th Ward.
I'll entertain a motion to approve report and recommendation by Alderman Levin, second by Alderman Polumsky. Alderman Levin, anything else you wish to add?
This was a unanimous report from the commission and from DPZ, and we both recommended denial of the application.
Okay, any additional questions or comments? Seeing none, I'll ask Clerk Spencer to please call the roll.
Levin.
Aye.
Polumsky.
Aye.
Graham.
Aye.
Hipskin.
Aye.
York.
Aye.
Healy, absent. Honquist.
Aye.
Kennedy.
Aye.
Mulliner.
Aye.
Wagner, absent. Gutenkopf.
Aye.
Reuter.
Aye.
Dunn.
Aye.
Leader.
Aye.
12 ayes, 0 nays, 2 absent.
12 ayes, 0 nays, 2 absent. That report, that motion carries. Report approved. Agenda item number 6, reports and recommendations. I'll keep this very quick as we are going to move on to budget and might go late tonight, fair warning. Real quick, I want to thank members of the Senior Commission, Eleanor Wall, pardon me, Chris Hansen and Grayson Haller. They hosted elected officials touring 3 different senior housing locations in Elmhurst. I personally found it very educational, and I'm happy to see some of the good, hard work that we're doing here in Elmhurst. Second, I want to announce and congratulate the IC Catholic Prep girls volleyball team. They won the Class 2A state championship over the weekend. We congratulate them on their victory. It was hampered a little bit by the storm. I have invited the team back to the City Council meeting for December 2nd, where we can formally recognize them. We're very proud of their accomplishments. Last but not least, meeting reminders. We have a meeting immediately following this to hopefully finish our first pass through the budget. That does put us on pace for next Monday night for circle backs, and then December 2nd, regular committee meeting, but we will follow it with a committee of the whole for a discussion on Hahn Street. That's my report. City Manager Grabowski.
Thank you. I do have a few items. Mayor mentioned the storm yesterday. Just as a quick update, we for the most part dodged what could have been very serious for us, and certainly our thoughts and prayers are with those communities that got hit from the storm. We did have some staff in on storm duty, as we always do. As I said, we didn't see a terrible amount of rain, and what we did see was just localized ponding with the leaves over the sewer grates. We have been sweeping constantly every day. I think I see sweepers in different parts of town, and so we still encourage people to clean those off, rake their leaves up when they can. The next free leaf pickup for the city is the first week of December. So if you have questions on that, please get those out. We will send out a reminder via email on the website as that gets closer. Two Thanksgiving-related reminders. One is the Turkey Trot has a new route this year. If you're interested in that, please visit the website to accommodate the size that has grown to. We've been working with Dan Gibbons to reroute that. It kind of highlights the city center area and College now. And then the Public Works Department has been working with a company to provide fryer oil recycling the Saturday after Thanksgiving, and that's at the Public Works facility from 9 to noon on the 30th of November. And then the last item I have is an update on the Addison Street project. We have not scheduled that public hearing yet. We've been working with Arco Murray on the design plans, along with traffic engineers, appraisers, parking engineers, all of that, to make sure that everyone has all of the information on the Zoning and Planning Commission that they're looking for. Once we are sure that we have all that information and all of those folks can be at the public hearing, we will schedule that. At this point, it will be into the new year, though. We know that much. That's all that I have.
Okay, any other reports? Alderman Bram.
Yeah, just actually a question to City Manager Grabowski's statements about street sweeping. I know that in the past, as well as tonight, you've expressed that the city has been out street sweeping a lot. Is there any permanent schedule of where the street sweeper, what part of town, not necessarily what block, what part of town the street sweeper is hitting on what particular day and or week?
I don't have that with me. I'd have to get that to you tomorrow if that's okay.
Great, thank you.
Okay, any other reports? Seeing none, other business? Any other business? Alderman Plumsky.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. There's been much discussion about the Berteau Hospital campus and how the city may help shape its future. And as we know, the hospital is a private entity and the property is for sale. If a single-family home builder purchases and moves forward to develop the area, we as a council are able to influence it, as a development of its size and nature requires council approval. We have the ability to work with the developer in this process to see that certain attributes are included in the project. Additionally, several committee meetings ago, I asked that we, the city, review and refine our anti-monotony policy and code. As it stands, homes not identical but strikingly similar to each other could line the streets of a new development. I look forward to discussion and the opportunity to take action to enhance our code. We must ensure that any housing development, should one move forward, can only be high quality, complementary to the neighborhood, and reflective of the character and charm defining Elmhurst. I have asked staff to gather information on this, and I submitted a copy of another community's newly refined code designed to prevent cookie-cutter homes. I'm asking that this topic be placed on the DPZ agenda at our next committee meeting. Thanks.
Any other business? Seeing none, I'll ask for a motion to adjourn. Alderman York, second by Alderman Levin. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're adjourned 5 minutes. I'll be calling roll in 5 minutes.